first off want to apologize for the delay in episodes. We've been on like a 2.5-week hiatus because
there's been a lot.
Just everything. I posted up on our Facebook page the picture of us at the Red Ball. We won Best Dressed.
We did.
And
thanks to Huey Dillon.
Yes.
PhillyChitChat.com, where you can find all the things happening in Philadelphia. Anyway.
Good little plug.
Yeah. He's awesome.
Yeah, he is. He is. And the other people we were with were pretty awesome, too.
Oh, yeah.
But we decided we were going to do an episode on beer. And, you know, I've been brewing for a couple of years and kind of wanted to get into a little bit of the history of it and basically how you go about beer. And then we figured we'd you're going to see during the episode some other people's Twitter tags popping up down bottom, and it'll be their favorite beers. We figured we'd give everybody a shout out because we threw it out on Twitter.
Yeah.
We were going to do this episode and have it air this past Friday, which was National Beer Day.
It was.
But it was also
Philly's home opener.
And so, you know, I went and I got the make your own 6-pack of beer, and
we watched the game.
Yeah, and pretty much ended up drinking the whole 6-pack of beer before we had a chance to sit down and do this.
Yeah,
so,
and we were just hanging out with the kids. Now they're on spring break, so.
Yeah. So beer's a funny thing because a lot of people don't really... You hear a lot of people say, oh, I don't like beer. Mm-hmm. I was one of those people at one point. You know,
but you think about beer, like a lot of people, they think about beer, they think about college years.
Well, and that's...
Right?
Yeah. I mean, you know... You get into college and you drink what you can afford and you party and that's it. And then you don't really get to appreciate it for what it is.
But I do have to say, though, I think from the time we went to college to the college people now, I think they have more of like a distinction, like taste now for craft beer.
Yeah.
You know?
Speaking of craft beer, what are we...
We are drinking Yard's Porter.
A George Washington Porter.
Very good. If you haven't been to Philly, or when you do come to Philly and you are into beer, definitely recommended to go do a tour there. It's awesome.
I will give you a little secret. If you go to Yard's Brewery, they have presidential beers. So they have George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, everything. Ask for the George Jefferson. Mm-hmm. They do a black and tan, which is a really cool. But it's not on their menu. But you know, because George Jefferson. We just
spilled the secret.
He's just moving on up. But beer, kind of similar to wine.
Get it? Go with the flow?
Yeah.
No?
No. Okay. It dates back thousands of years. They don't know. The earliest recording of beer is on a tablet in Mesopotamia. What? Are you mocking me?
No.
That is the earliest recording of beer. We're going back pretty much 7,000 years at this point. And I'm sure it goes before that. But more modern times, they really couldn't drink water because of the bacteria in the water. Mm-hmm. And bread's been around forever. So what they would do is they would pour the water onto like the stale bread, the leftover bread. Mm-hmm. And they would let it sit overnight, basically to saturate the bread, to give the bread flavor, and to keep it moist. But you can't do that for long without it, you know, getting moldy. Well, the residue that would come off of the grain bread would turn into a very low alcohol content beer.
Yeah, because there's yeast in the bread.
Right. And it was actually safer for children to drink the lower alcohol content beer
than it was to drink
the water.
Right.
So everybody was pretty much drinking beer from childhood.
Yeah.
At that point.
Right.
You know, it wasn't the way it is now.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
And Ben Franklin is often associated, I mean, he's associated with beer a lot because he did brew his own beer.
Yeah.
But he's misquoted as saying beer is something that is proof that God loves us. Mm-hmm.
But they've also said that about wine, too.
Right. Well, and the funny thing is that Ben Franklin was actually misquoted. He was referring to wine during that. Mm-hmm. So I think it's funny because one association leads to another, and then you know you pass a couple hundred years and everything becomes different.
Right. Mm-hmm. There was actually something I thought was really cool. There was a shipwreck from the 19th century. Did you hear that they found like a beer
Yeah,
there.
they found a couple
And
of
they
those.
drank it, and they said it had burnt notes. Of course, it was very acidic, but can you imagine like trying that, like beer? And it was in the deep sea, so it was in the cold abyss, like the down there. So it's not like it was in the hot weather. So I think that was pretty cool. Can you imagine finding something like that? Would you try? Would you open it and try it,
I
or
don't.
would you keep it?
No, I would try. I mean, why are you going to keep it? Why are you going
Because
to keep
that's
it?
really cool to be
I'll
like,
tell you what, something like that I would not try on my own. I'd have to have a celebration,
Right.
and try
but
it.
it's not even good
Might
though
be,
anymore.
no, it was probably skunky and horrible.
Right.
But the yeast from it. Now this is interesting because they found a similar thing in ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt. It came from ancient Egypt. They found it in modern times, and it was from
King-
one of the. It
King
was from
Tut?
King Tut's tomb, I
Right.
believe. They found a jar with what they believe was beer in it, and there was yeast in the bottom of it. And they actually took the yeast and they cultivated it. And I don't know which brewery was it. Was it Dogfish Head? No, it wasn't Dogfish Head.
No.
They did like Midas's Touch.
Yeah.
And they basically took that ancient yeast and they recultivated it.
Yeah.
And they made a beer out of that
Do
yeast.
they still do that?
Yeah, they still do it.
Well, you should put the description for people if they're interested in checking
Yeah, maybe
that out.
I will. I'll
Yeah.
put that
That's,
down here.
it's
So,
really cool.
we actually tried it. It was a very sweet beer when I
Yeah.
tried it. It wasn't expecting what I had, and it was not my typical pick for beer, but it was definitely different. That I would try it again.
Right,
in a
right,
heartbeat.
right. Yeah.
But they can recultivate that stuff. So even if they find it and it's not good, they can take the yeast from that flavoring and reuse it because you can. People do that all the time. When I first got into brewing beer, I never had my own yeast. I was always
Yeah.
buying yeast packets. But then, we did it a couple times.
Yeah.
When we started.
But
out.
now you do it with your friend.
Yeah, I do it with my friend Rob, and he knows way more than I do about it. But we've been doing it from grain for about like 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah.
And
It's really cool though, the process and
going.
everything.
Yeah.
It's really neat. I mean, that's the story of every brewery. Like, they start with batches or they start with just testing things out, and they all say that they've started with that little kit.
Right.
They all say the same story. They're like, "Oh, we started with the little kit," and
Oh, the funny thing about those kits is they start and
it's really cool though.
they give you the wort. And basically, if you don't know what the wort is, it's the sugars from the grain. So when you're initially doing beer from scratch, you have to cook your grain. It's usually barley, but there's also you can do oats and stuff like that. And you boil it at like 150 degrees for about 40 minutes, 45 minutes. And when it's done, it creates kind of like a syrupy type of sugar. And that's when you add your hops in and you cook it for like another hour and a half.
Right.
And then you rapidly cool it. And the stuff that comes out of that, when you cook your initial grain, before you add all the barley and everything, it's like a thick syrup almost. And that's called the wort.
Yeah.
And that's where they start you at with the beer kits that make your home like Mr. Beer or whatever.
Yeah. Mr. Brewmeister or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's cool though.
It is really cool.
That's a cool gift, and if you're planning on trying it out, I think that's the way to go.
It is the way to go, and especially if you want to get into brewing at all, it's really actually
I think
a fun process.
And I think it's a cheaper way of trying it out, see how you like it, see, obviously if you do take it seriously, it's a lot, I think a little more difficult, more time consuming than it is with the beer.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to
beer
get
kit.
into adding different spices and stuff
Right.
like that, and we added vanilla bean to one, and it was funny because we tried to do a vanilla porter, and it ended up being a chocolate stout because we overcooked what was in there, and the flavor ended up shifting. So beer is very tricky with it's not it is an exact science, but it's not an exact science. So, if you're not paying attention for 2 seconds, you could either completely mess up something,
Right.
or come out with something completely different.
Right.
And then, when we cool, we actually took to cool it, you want to kind of get it cold fast. So what we did was we took copper pipe and we coiled it and we submerge it in the 5-gallon. We do 10-gallon batches now. but we hook up a garden hose to it and run the cold water through it, and it actually rapidly cools it. And the key to all of it is you have to keep everything completely sanitary.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do a very, very hot dishwasher mode, but a lot of people use, and we use the powdered disinfectant, which highly disinfects. You don't want to use like a scrubby brush. You don't want to use Brillo pad, because you get those grooves in there, and that's where bacteria grows, and it causes all kinds of problems. So, did I educate you enough? Are you going to give us some fun facts now? Because I'm a little dry here. Me and Batman need to have.
Jeez, no, I can. No, that's really helpful information, especially if people are taking that seriously.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Well, I mean, I don't do. I just drink it and enjoy it, and but we don't really drink beer as much. You know, I'm more of a wine drinker myself. But I do love craft beer. I do love tasting different beer. Just like with food, I love tasting a lot of food. But some of the fun facts that I did find are really interesting, though. Like in 1814, in London, there was a vat that ruptured. So there were 400,000 gallons of beer throughout the streets of Lake London.
God, I'd be licking the ground.
Like, did people come out with like...
It's like that episode
jugs?
of The Simpsons.
I mean, like...
Do you remember the episode of The Simpsons when the sugar truck just like fell over?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you imagine it? So I mean, but the people just come out with like a cup and just be like, "Oh, I'm gonna have some beer."
I mean,
you know,
if it's high enough up, yeah, sure.
Yeah. And then also, kidney stones. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that. A beer a day will actually prevent kidney stones. About 40%.
Really?
Yes.
See,
this
is why I said one beer.
Right. We're not talking like 6.
Well, what kind of beer?
2.
Because like we had
They
an
just say
Imperial
beer.
Stout the other day that was an 11%.
Yeah.
It was very good, but
Mm-hmm.
it was very good.
Yeah.
But I mean, can I have one of them a day, or is this like a?
I don't know what kind. I mean, you can obviously do research on that. They're always changing different things all the time too. So.
Well, they say dark beers are actually healthier for you, and it's funny because I don't.
Right. They say that, but calorie wise.
Calorie wise, you want the lighter beers.
Right.
But the darker beers are actually healthier for you.
Right.
In moderation, obviously. But what I find interesting with that, and I completely just had
lost
I brain
train of thought.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I don't. Where was I? Oh.
Do you talk too much in your head and you just can't like?
I do. I can't keep up with the voices.
Okay.
They're all having a party with beer, and there's like a keg in my head, and I get like I have like a half a pint left. Times a year. I get like during the warmer months, I go for a hoppier type of beer or a lighter beer.
Right.
I
like a citrusy beer in the summer.
Yeah, that too. Actually, you know what? And you might laugh at me for this, but I will sit by the grill if I'm grilling, and I will have like a Corona.
Oh no,
or something like that.
I'm not knocking Corona. I love Corona. I love Dos Equis. Like those are my summertime go-tos. I love Mexican beer.
The Serpent Stout was the Imperial Stout that we had.
Right.
It had like Adam and Eve on the cover, and I
that's the one I found. I found it actually
really cool.
at Whole Foods.
Yeah, and it was really cool because the Adam and Eve's presence in one of my books. But so right away I was like, oh, this is awesome. I want to have it. But I like that, and during the colder months, I tend to lean toward a stout, and I don't know why. Is it because it's fuller and it keeps you warmer? I mean, why?
Well,
is
and they
that?
also say that stouts you're supposed to drink at like room temp, right?
Yeah.
You're
so
supposed to have them
so
a
you
little bit
serve
warmer.
them warm. Okay. See, this is why I go to the foodie.
This is. I mean, it kind of makes sense because it is richer. It is more coffee based, chocolate based, and when you think of coffee and chocolate, it's usually hot. So I'm assuming that's kind of the connection with the two.
What kind of beer do you think Ben Franklin was drinking or making?
Probably porters. I would think like something dark.
You would think that, right?
Yeah.
No, actually, wheat beers.
Really?
Because everything was
wheat.
wheat.
Is kind of like an amber. Am I right?
Yeah, they were amber. They were They were like a middle-based lager. They weren't super high alcohol content, but he was pretty much taking what was a standard everyday practice and making it for enjoyment. So he actually talks about, it's really funny, you have to look up some of the stuff that Ben Franklin was talking about. He would talk about his friend that would wake up in the morning and have a pint before breakfast, and then he'd have a pint of something else
That's really
with
cool.
breakfast.
Yeah.
And, you know, but back then it was like, it was standard practice. It wasn't like you're going to wake up now and have a 6% alcohol beer before breakfast.
Well, then if you do, you know you have a serious problem.
Well, yes.
Right?
I
mean, I think alcohol in general should be taking... I mean, obviously now I'm older. It may sound like an old fart by saying this, but if you are drinking, I mean, it should be drinking...
Always drink responsibly.
Exactly. I mean, I actually drink it more for enjoyment, you know. So to me, it's more about like the taste and stuff like that. But no, I do have to say something.
Oh, do you?
Okay. So the Guinness World Record of chugging a beer was in 1977, New Cumberland in PA. A guy drank 1 liter of beer in 1.3 seconds.
My God.
Yes. Is that 1 liter right there?
All right, so...
We're not shamelessly plugging.
Not shamelessly plugging. Should we have to blur this out or
No.
something? So this...
This is good. This is good seltzer.
This is 1 liter.
Yeah, this whole thing. He drank that in 1.3 seconds.
Now...
But think about it.
This was carbonated. This is a seltzer.
Right.
Okay? And this is pretty much what I drink all the time.
Right.
If it's not... doesn't have alcohol.
Yeah.
1 liter of beer.
Yes.
In
but
what?
You figure
in
1.3 seconds in 1977.
I mean, you can open your throat and pour something
Some
out.
people.
This is carbonated.
But do you remember?
Beer's
do you remember your one friend? I mean, he would just it went.
The drummer on my old band?
Yes.
Yeah.
He would take a pint and he would just let it. I mean, it went down like a waterfall.
Cheers to Ted.
Seriously, I mean, I could never. Like, how can you eat, like...
Well, back in the day, you thought you could take them. But, you know...
I tried. It just
It was ridiculous. I've seen people chug down.
I gotta tell you, if I were to even do that, I can't.
Well, that though, is that in the Guinness World Records type thing. That's something you do.
There's actually a picture of the guy.
Oh, I'm sure.
Chugging it.
But it's to impress people at a party. When we're talking about beer, we're talking about enjoying it for what it is.
Right.
You know, you can, you cook with it. Actually, one thing I didn't mention with
like beer stew or beer cheese.
Oh, we've had beer cheese before.
So good.
One thing I didn't mention about the brewing process, when you're done with all the cooling and everything, and you go to let it sit for a couple weeks, when you finally go to bottle it,
right?
You actually, a lot of the sugar's already in there. The yeast and the sugar is what makes the alcohol. It sits there, and that's, you check the alcohol. Are you? No, you're not.
What?
You're mocking me. So you take when you go to bottle it, you take a little bit of sugar and you put it in, and you don't use table sugar. Remember when we were doing it? We used, what did we use the one time? We used honey the one time. We made like a honey lager.
Mm-hmm.
You use sugar, but it can't be table sugar because it's processed. And that is actually what causes the carbonation. When you cap it and you put the sugar in there, it gets it reactivates it, and it kind of pushes to the top. So that's where you get your carbonation from. Otherwise, it would be, pretty much flat.
Mm-hmm.
But it is fun to taste it along the way as you go. I mean, you've tasted some of the batches we've done right out of when it was hot, when it was cold, and each step of the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like tasting all that stuff. I mean, just trying the malt. Like I like tasting everything.
Yes. Don't grow hops in your backyard if you have a dog, because hops will kill dogs.
Since we're talking about that, did you know the marijuana and beer, the hops and stuff, are from the same family flower?
Yes. And actually, I believe...
Did you know that?
I believe someone made a hemp beer within the past year or two.
I mean, there's hemp milk, there's hemp, There's
Right. I believe someone. I mean, it makes sense. It is a grain. It's
I mean, if you look at it, kind of. I mean,
it kind of looks almost wheat-like in its raw,
yeah.
state.
Yeah,
So
for
I mean,
sure.
I can imagine that. But
Another thing, though, for us girls, pro brewers were actually women. They were the first brewers. Did you know that?
really,
But they had to be beautiful to be brewsters. Did you know that? They were
cool.
women first.
So now let me ask you a question.
Oh, goodness.
Were they beautiful before the beer or after the beer?
That's so messed up. Oh my god.
I mean, there is a thing such as beer goggles,
Stop it. No, but they were the first professional beer makers.
That's
They
awesome.
were women.
That's awesome. And it makes sense. I mean,
We were in the kitchen.
in those times, I mean, you're talking thousands of years ago. In those times, the women were the ones cooking everything.
Yeah.
And
It makes sense.
they're disinfecting or whatever they're doing. And
It
they're
makes
brewing.
sense.
Yeah, it does totally
Just
make
saying.
sense.
All my girls.
Yeah, I'm actually interested. We had a beer, the beer tea or tea beer, the other day. I got the 6-pack. I mean,
Oh, that one. That was really good, actually.
it was brewed. It was
It
sweet.
was Shock Top.
No,
It was
not
one of
Shock
those.
Top.
Who was it?
It wasn't anybody I ever seen.
No,
before.
it is. We got that one thing. We did. Because, yes, we drank it here. No, that's when we got it wasn't the 6-pack.
It was in a can.
It wasn't that one. It wasn't, I'm not talking about that one.
I'm talking about that.
I'm not talking about
Oh no, the one you're talking about. I know what one you're talking about.
Wasn't that Shock Top?
That might have. I don't think it was Shock Top.
It was a tea one. That's when we had our friends over and we're all like, this is so
Oh,
good.
maybe it was. I think it was. That was last year.
Yeah. Was it last year? No, yeah.
Whatever.
Last
Whatever.
Year. Mm-hmm.
But we had another one the other day that was a.
Don't mind our ramblings.
It was a tea beer, and it was beer that was brewed with tea leaves in the whole
tea bags or tea leaves.
tea leaves.
Mm-hmm.
They put it into the process where they're doing the grain and they're making the wort. So they actually cooked it in with that, and it was really good. It was a very low alcohol content beer. It was I think it was maybe 3.2%.
Yeah.
But it was actually really good, and I'm not in. Oh my god, get that thing out of here! The cat's name is Basil.
Yes.
Basil Anchovy.
Mm-hmm.
Because it had Miss Cook here, Miss Chef, had to have something named after food, which is a good name.
He is. He's cute. Anyway.
Dumb but cute. So
Comment below and leave us your favorite beer.
yeah, what are your favorite beers?
We always love trying new beers. So
if you comment, we will tweet you out, and
well, make sure you leave your Twitter name handle or Instagram or whatever if you have one. If not, we'll just mention your name.
And I'm excited to hear what other people's favorite beers are. We already have a couple. They'll be scrolling through this episode, and we will talk to you soon.
All right.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.